Hey YouTube, me and Luna are here. We are doing our Helldive Tier 9 bugs weapon tier list. We're going to try and go through all the weapons and rate them. We got the new weapons here as well that just came out with the new Polar Warbond. Starting off, we're going to go with the first assault rifle, the Liberator. Solid weapon, just kind of works. I don't think much more needs to be said. You've tried it. You've loved it to some extent. It doesn't do anything in particularly special, but it's just kind of a workhorse. Liberator Penetrator, I think this one is going to be like closer to a B-, just because it has medium pen doesn't necessarily make it great, especially when it's compared to the rest of the medium pen alternatives in both the Marksman Rifle tier and the Auto Rifle tier. I would rather use the Adjudicator overall for bugs. I do like it still, and there's some reasons I want to still use it, but now that the normal Liberator has been buffed, it makes even less reason to go down so much damage just to gain medium pen. I do hope that they give it more damage in the future to better be able to compete with the Adjudicator. All right, going into Liberator Concussive, I think it's just a C tier weapon. In many respects, it's not like the Pummeler. The Pummeler should be what this weapon is aiming to be in the assault weapon category. I know they gave it a buff, and that's why it doesn't need a buff badly, because it already kind of got one, but it still needs some love to at least get to that like middle, that B tier. I do hope it gets more love in the future, especially now that people have seen how good the Pummeler can be. I'm hoping the devs will be like, oh, we can make this a better weapon. Tenderizer. This is a very, very, very interesting one to talk about just because so many people are pissed about it. And I think a lot of it is pretty warranted, especially with the state of its ammo economy that's come out with. The weapon right now only gets half reserves when you go pick up a brick or versus anything, right? So if you go get the resupply that you call down, you're only going to get 5 out of your 10 mags versus every other weapon that gets full reserves at this point. I believe this is not unintentional, but it's unfortunate. And because of that, I would put it B-, C+. If they fix that, it would probably just sit right next to the Liberator. It's a solid weapon. It does the same amount of damage, slightly lower fire rate, but significantly less recoil than the normal Liberator, and slightly more ammo in reserve. 10 mags versus, I believe, the 7. Although the magazine is different and smaller, you get more total magazines, so you actually technically get a small net positive. Until they fix that ammo economy, I'm not sure when they will. Maybe it'll be really soon. Maybe it'll take a while. I would put it B-, C+. Definitely a little bit of a letdown. I hope in the future they look into it more. Sickle, I think, is still an A+, S- pick when you go for bug missions. It's fantastic, huge magazine. Although they took out the extra radiators, most players weren't really utilizing them fully. It's a great choice. It's by far the best assault rifle that you can pick. You might as well just pick that instead of any of these other options that I've put on the board so far. The Adjudicator is, after its buffs, I think like a B+ weapon. I don't quite want to put it in A-. I like that it's medium pen. It's just that medium pen isn't super useful. I would overall rather use the Sickle just to have that unlimited ammo supply potentially. Hopefully in the future they either give it less recoil or hell, even a little bit more ammo in reserve, so I don't feel like I'm pulled so much towards the Sickle. Scythe definitely got a buff, but I don't think it's enough. Not yet. It's getting closer, but my main concern at the moment is its sights aren't very strong for bugs or bots, and its fire time is really poor versus the Sickle, which just gets so much more damage out before overheating. I think at this point you can keep the damage the same, just make it not overheat as fast. I think that would be a good option for it. Pummeler. This is a really big surprise for me. I didn't expect to love this weapon that much. When I saw the trailer, I was like, okay, another SMG. Okay, it's going to be like a Liberator Concussive, but in SMG form. Boy, was I surprised. Losing 5 damage, no smaller magazine, and just a small fire rate decrease, but gaining so much CC potential. I adore the weapon. I actually really like it for bugs and bots. It's very fun. The Defender, I think, is still like an A- pick. It's still very strong, but I think it's kind of dropped in my perspective because, like, I don't see myself ever really wanting to use the Defender over the Pummeler, but I know that some people out there would rather have the damage rather than the damage per second in general, like the higher fire rate and the extra damage that you're losing. And personally, I'd probably put it like B+, A-. I'm sure there'll be some that like probably say, just put it all the way down. It needs a buff now. But, you know, it's still a solid weapon. It really is. I'm kind of struggling on where I want to put it right at this moment. We're just going to put it A- for now. Might swap it throughout the video. Blitzer, another big contender on the A tier. I love that this thing got the 50% fire rate increase. Before, it was very niche. You had to like shoot, like run back, shoot, run back, shoot, run back. You couldn't really hold your ground. But now that it has that fire rate increase, the inconsistencies kind of go away because, well, if it fails to hit the target because of some weird line of sight issue, at least you got another shot coming in. Also, the tons of stagger. You can kind of stagger lock things very easily now because they don't have time to recover, which is awesome. It's a solid pick. It doesn't have all that range, so I can't really put it into S tier, but it's very strong. I like it. I like it a lot. Spray&Pray, I'm going to drop down to a C+ kind of weapon. My main things that I want to see it is get the better handling. It's the only shotgun with bad handling in the game. I don't know why it feels like I'm like controlling a boat or turning a boat. Also, the Incendiary Breaker got a huge pellet damage increase to the point where there's really no reason to use the Spray&Pray versus the Incendiary Breaker. Like in comparison to damage, I believe it's 192 for the Spray&Pray versus 240 per shot on the Incendiary Breaker. And the Incendiary Breaker has crazy amounts of fire damage. Yeah, this thing needs to be looked at. Honestly, like I might just want to put it there just so that they can look at it and just be like, hey, we really need to touch this thing. I don't understand its purpose in the game at the moment. Going into the Breaker, I still think it's a solid A- weapon. High damage burst, but not a ton of ammo in reserve. Still really good for bugs, but it's being outclassed by other weapons. I'm sure many would prefer to use the Blitzer at times, but I'm still going to put it in the A just because it has a very quite tight shotgun spread, and the damage per second is extremely good for just mag dumping. Punisher, still a solid A shotgun. Tons of stagger. Love the weapon overall. I just hope in the future they can maybe give it a little bit more, maybe a faster reload or something like that. But honestly, if they didn't touch it, I would be perfectly fine. It's a solid weapon. I do really like it. Okay, going into the Slugger. I think the Slugger is like an A- weapon. I still think it has a purpose to be in the A tier, although it received that really harsh nerf early on. I do hope they at least revert some of the damage and stagger changes, at least a little bit. Giving it a little bit of love would be nice, because I definitely see a lot less people using it, and I would love to see more people using it. It's still good, but it lost some of that love that it had in the past. All right, Incendiary Breaker. I don't think this really needs that much of an explanation. If you've used it, it's disgusting. It has great damage per second just from the pellets, and then if you light something on fire, most likely it will die from like most warriors, just one one buckshot spread to the head, and then the burning will finish it off if you don't already kill its head. I think it's like 2 or 3 pellets to a hunter, and then the burn damage will finish it off, so it's amazing versus anti-hunter. It only really struggles versus Bile Titans and Chargers because, well, the fire damage doesn't actually affect them. I know they turn on, they actually look like they're on fire, but you'll notice that the indication for damage around your crosshair is not blinking with the Incendiary Breaker when you shoot those 2 enemies. It doesn't seem like Chargers or Bile Titans actually get affected by fire. Diligence is just a solid B tier. I don't really recommend a hell of a lot of people use it, but some people like that longer range playstyle, so it's fair to kind of use it. I like it, but I'm not a huge fan of that playstyle personally, but if you like that longer range, it's a solid weapon. Diligence Counter Sniper, I think, is its bigger brother in every way possible for the most part, just because it has medium pen and very similar damage and so on and so forth. And now that the The handling is not nearly as bad. I personally, if I had to pick one of the two counters or the Marksman Rifles, I'd pick the counter sniper. I like that it has medium pen. It's not as strong as its close range brethren, just because you don't need that longer range capabilities nearly as much, but it is solid. Good fire rate, good pen, decent damage. It's not bad. Crossbow, I'm having a bit of a hard one with this one. It doesn't really fit my playstyle, nor do I love it, but I do hope that they give it back that AoE that it lost. I like that it gained more stagger, but I understand that they wanted to do like a buff and a nerf, right? So they gave it more stagger, but they also dropped its damage fall off a little bit. I do hope that they give it back I'm having trouble deciding if I want to do it like C+ or like B- territory, B area. I still think it's fairly good for stealth gameplay and using it as almost like a decoy nade to like get enemies to be distracted by it. But as far as like explosive weapon goes, I would rather use the Plasma Punisher. Speaking of which, we'll just go right into that. I think the Plasma Punisher is a solid A tier weapon pick for bugs. I've been using it quite a bit lately for bugs and bots. I love the changes with the faster arc or the faster projectile speed. It's very strong. Also, the damage fall off changes on it make it a very consistent weapon to do ad clearing with. Really fast reload speed. Bring some kind of secondary to deal with enemies up close so you don't kill yourself. But, you know, after they've changed explosive damage, you're not really shooting yourself and killing yourself all that often at the moment. You should be able to survive at least 1 point blank shot, even in light armor. I think it gets down to like 1/4 HP. Solid weapon though. Eruptor. They just hit this thing hard, removing the shrapnel. Now, some people might like gasp that it's still in the A tier, but I think it's solely there because of how much utility it brings to your loadout. It allows you to bring some kind of stratagem that covers your bases as like your primary weapon, while you use this to close bug holes and open caches and so on and so forth. It's still okay at killing, you know, bile spewers, and it can deal with some ad clear and stuff like that, but I would mostly pair this with some kind of support weapon that you're going to use as your primary. So like your machine gun lovers or laser cannon enjoyers, AMR, you know, something, or autocannon to some extent, maybe, you know, something that you're going to use the majority of the time when you're doing a mission. Maybe not autocannon, but you know what I mean. Dominator, what can I say? It's just still so disgusting at dealing with those higher tier targets, right? So you bring the Incendiary Breaker for like anything from like maybe Hive Guardian to Scavenger, and then anything above that, you know, dealing with like from anything like a Bile Spewer to a Charger to a Hive Commander, Brood Commander, you're using the Dominator, right? So it's just a fantastic weapon. It does so much damage up front and has a crazy amount of stagger. It'd be hard for me not to put it in S tier. Okay, for another controversial weapon, I've been seeing a lot of people talking about this weapon, the new Purifier. I think it's a solid B pick. It's not as strong as the Plasma Punisher, in my opinion, for bugs, but it's not useless. It's more of almost like a DMR in a way, where you're supposed to be like bullying enemies at longer ranges, dealing with bile spewers and stuff like that. I feel like this weapon would actually be even higher rated if we knew when we could get bile spewers. If we knew when we could get bile spewers, the Purifier is actually very strong at dealing with it because they have medium pen and explosive, two things that bile spewers have and are weak against, right? I think it's a solid B. I'm sure some people will be like, no, it's complete shit. But with decent range and kiting and good aim, it's a solid weapon. At least it has explosive and at least it has medium pen. It's diverse in that regard. If they were going to change it for bugs, I would probably just give it a more sustainable like AoE or more damage per shot. It takes far too many shots on a Brood Commander's head, in my opinion. I think it's like 4 to 5 on average. I would love to see it be more destructive to them, especially since it has medium pen and it's kind of, you know, competing against the Dominator in that regard, where the Dominator can 2-shot it. It takes 4 to 5 shots. I don't know. And you're charging up rather than the Dominator's like full auto fire. I do hope that this thing gets a little bit of love in the bugs front. I do like it for the bots. Just a little sneak peek. I do think it goes closer to the A tier in bots, but for bugs, because you're always getting stuff up close in your face, it needs a little bit of love. Unfortunately, the Arc Blitzer is twice here, so we're going to skip that. Scorcher, still like an S- weapon. Fantastic if you need explosive damage to deal with Bile Spewers' stomachs or like a Bile Titan's stomach. It's still very good at killing chargers, butts because of the explosive damage, and it's just a solid ad clear weapon because it does have some AoE, fast fire rate, or fairly fast fire rate. Its only negative would be ammo economy, but most of the time when people say that to me, I just say rely on your Redeemer or the new Verdict as your like scavenger killer, and then use this for everything else. It's quite strong still. The Redeemer, I still think, is your go-to like secondary weapon. It's so strong, even with the recoil changes. It's just so good. I still think it's the best because even if you want like a single fire secondary weapon, just throw this into semi-automatic and just tap fire it. 31 round magazine, 60 damage each. You might have to take 2 shots versus the Verdict, but you have way more ammo in reserve as well because of those massive magazines. It's just so good. And if you're having trouble with the recoil changes, just tap fire. 3-round bursts at a hunter. Really strong, especially if you're hitting those headshots. Really, really, really good. Grenade pistol, I don't think anyone's surprised that I'm going to put it in A tier. So much utility. I wouldn't really recommend using it for ad clear, but so much utility it brings to your loadout. I find myself even using it more than the Eruptor now. Like I find I'll use something like the Incendiary Breaker, and then I'll have the grenade pistol, and then I'll bring some kind of AT weapon like the recoilless EAT, or obviously the Quasar being the best AT weapon still. And then that way I feel like I can deal with bug holes, then I can have like my ad clear, and then I have my my AT weapon for the bigger boys. Dagger, I'm going to put it right next to the Scythe. It's the same kind of category. It needs some more love. I think that my main concern is that fire time, the damage is almost fine on it. Maybe you go up a little bit higher, but it's mostly just fire time. It overheats far too quickly, especially for bug missions. I don't like that. I want it to have more fire time before overheating. The damage per second is kind of fine for a laser weapon that has unlimited ammo. It needs a little bit more. It's close. It's getting closer and closer to that B tier okay section. I want it to have a little bit more love. Peacemaker, I think it's just a solid B. It just kind of works, I can't really say too much more other than I wish it had more ammo reserves to compete with the Redeemer. I like its damage per shot, but we just got its bigger brother, and I would put its bigger brother in A-. Same kind of thing though. Needs more ammo reserves or a bigger magazine, maybe, or a little bit more damage. Some people have been talking to me about that. Maybe it deserves to be a little more damage, and you just bump all of the secondary weapons a little bit closer to the Redeemer rather than nerfing the Redeemer again. Hard to say on which direction. I hope that they pick one and we get a more powerful sidearm in the future. The Senator. I love the Senator for bot missions. I don't love the Senator for bug missions, man, because I typically swap into my secondary to deal with like a scavenger next to me or a hunter in close range. And because it's not a reliable one-shot to a hunter unless you actually hit its head, I can't rate it super high. I believe I'm going to put it around B-, B+. I recommend it more for a loadout where you have a primary weapon that's light or dealing with ad clear, like maybe even like Incendiary Breaker, and then you bring your Senator for dealing with those medium pen enemies that you don't want to have to mag dump with the Incendiary Breaker. I like the Senator, but I like it more for bots because there's less enemies in general in bots, and I don't feel like I'm nearly as under pressure because although I love the speed loader, I absolutely love it. It doesn't quite have a fast enough reload all the time that I want it to, or like a large enough magazine because it's only a 6-shooter, and it doesn't always have as much damage as I would like per magazine dealing with those higher health enemies. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the weapons portion of the tier list. We are now going to go into the grenades section. Unfortunately, I don't have the image for the new Impact Incendiary, but I'll just start off with it. I believe it's an A tier. It's very strong, whereas maybe the normal Incendiary is like a B tier. It's fairly strong at just throwing, especially after the dot damage fix. It's fairly strong at dealing with bug breaches, but like the impact is more immediate. It does basically the exact same thing as the normal one. I'd say the only hindrance the impact has is if you're newer at the game, you might throw a couple impacts and they might blow up in your face, or you might not be able to kill a bug nest as reliably because you might be aiming it off a little bit and it's not quite going in the hole. Really solid A tier pick on the new Impact Incendiary. That being said, the normal nade as well, I would put in A tier, maybe like A-. I would probably prefer using the Impact Incendiary overall on bugs, is just, you know, fantastic as well. Dealing with chargers as well, you can deal with this. It's, let's be honest, it's just the younger brother to the better impact grenade. It's just so strong, getting that immediate damage out. Use one-shotting bile spewers on demand. It's just so strong. I can't not put it in S tier. It's incredible. Stun grenades, ever since the nerf to the Bile Titans, I believe it is an A+ pick. It's still incredibly good for giving you space when bugs are like all over yourself, right? Like, let's say like a bunch of pouncers jump on you or chargers all over you, just throwing it at your feet and then just dodging away, right? Sorry, not dodging, but diving away. Super powerful. Super powerful. Highly recommend. The larger radius frag grenades, I think, are okay, I guess, but I almost want to say that they just kind of, I don't know. I don't see myself ever wanting to use these unless like they got some kind of innate passive where maybe you get 2 extra nades because they're weaker, or maybe they got way more splash radius. I just feel like the extra radius on them is not exactly noticeable, especially when they do less damage. I'd rather have more damage in a smaller radius than less damage, significantly less damage in a larger radius. Smoke grenades for bugs. I just want to say that I want a larger radius on the smoke itself. You could use it for like stealth gameplay, but I just feel like so often it doesn't last long enough, or it doesn't have enough radius for that. I always see these comments when we're doing like the civilian escort missions, like, oh, just smoke off the area so the bugs don't like see them. Sure, but if they spot them even for a second, they'll walk into the smoke and start hitting them and stuff like that. And you can't kill the bugs when you smoke yourself off. So there's a lot of inherent downsides to smoke when it comes to bugs, but I do hope that they get a little bit more love in the future. Thermite recently got also fixed with the damage over time fix, so now it's consistent across host and non-host. But just a quick PSA, there's been a lot of testing on it. If you throw more than one thermite at a time at a target, only the first thermite's damage over time is applying. Both of the explosions at the end will deal damage, but you really should throw them one at a time. You can test this out for yourself. If you go find the Hulk mission, you can throw one thermite grenade, let it do its whole duration, then throw another one, and you'll see that it only needs a couple seconds of burning before the second one blows up. Or maybe it blows up, a little bit of inconsistency with the Hulks, by the way. But if you throw 2 thermites back to back, you don't always kill with 2, and you might need a third sometimes. Very weird. I hope that they can fix this in the future, not stacking. So if you see a Bile Titan or a Charger, technically, it's better to throw one at a time. I've heard some unconfirmed reports that it's pretty good versus Charger butts. I can't see myself wanting to do that. I feel like I'd rather just use an impact grenade that's just better versus everything, because you can in fact kill Charger's butts pretty easily with impact grenades, or just have so much more utility. So I hope in the future that the thermite grenades get more of a buff. Honestly, I think I was being too kind to it, putting it in B-. Probably should be a C+ kind of thing. Both of these need some love and some tuning. So yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the tier list overall. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'm streaming every day, trying out these weapons over time. My opinion does change over time, and I do read through the comments and try to see where you guys are using things, and maybe I'm missing a potential strategy for some of these weapons. So do let me know if I'm missing something. Really enjoy doing these videos. Do come by the stream and talk to me about it. And yeah, consider like, commenting, and subscribing, and Discord down below if you're looking for these tier lists in PNG form, or just, you know, my R&D section, or just to talk about Helldivers in general. Much love. Peace out. Say goodbye, Luna. She's fast asleep. Bye, everybody.